Hi, Dave Custer here, lecturer in both MIT's Experimental Study Group and the Comparative Media Studies and Writing program. In this video, I'll share some thoughts on meeting the communication challenges that arise during the course of 6101 projects. These thoughts are targeted to specific 6101 deliverables, to design projects in general, and more broadly to the interrelationship between design and communication. I will have succeeded if you come away from this video with a sense of how communication fits into the design process, the community of analog electronics designers, and the creation of value. I've misspent my distant spring doodling images that might convey or reinforce what I have to say. Here I intend the image to convey that talking about the form of a circuit leads naturally to a discussion of circuit behavior or function, a form-function collision that arises with seeming ease. The broad challenge is how to move these form-function discussions forward to make the world a better place. More on form and function later. In the 6101 syllabus sense, the communication assignments look like this: a list of deliverables on the left and due dates on the right. What's interesting to me is the conceptual underpinnings of the arc of communication assignments over time. How do these forms work as integral parts of the design process to, over time, lead to sound design? In some metaphorical sense, I'm asking the same question as, how does the circuit on the left produce the oscilloscope traces on the right? It's one thing to understand a single circuit and how it works. It's quite another to understand the individual components and be able to create new circuits. In 10 years, I want you to be able to create new forms of communication and adjust them to your needs. To do this, I want you to come away from this presentation with a model for how the components of communication work and how you might use these components to design communication. Communication is simply arranging the characters on the left to produce the finished journal article on the right. Application of 6041 principles suggests that you won't write your 6101 report anytime soon by typing randomly on your keyboard. If a report is not just going to happen, how can you make it happen? Broadly, authors have an exigency, a need, an urgent need to craft a text for an intended audience to effect change or desired action. Life is short, writing is long. No one engages in technical communication without an urgent need and the vision that somehow the world could be better. To succeed at crafting text to effect desired action requires expertise from 5 domains of knowledge and awareness of the community of practice in which the author and the audience are embedded. The 5 domains are shown here as overlapping circles in a Venn diagram. Self-knowledge. The good news is that you're surely the expert on yourself, what you really want to accomplish, how you prefer to work, what you already know. Content knowledge is the curriculum from the first half of 6101 and from 6002. It includes procedural knowledge, like using an oscilloscope or how to find the resonance of a circuit. Rhetorical knowledge is how text works, how it fits together, how all those characters create meaning. Genre knowledge covers the intricacies of the text situated in a community and a practice, how it is that the text is a solution to a typical challenge faced by a community of practice. And process knowledge is how to go about lining up all those characters so they effect the desired change. You might well ask, well, how does this Venn diagram help me write my report? My theory is that it helps you because it frees you from the tyranny of a rigid structure that makes no sense for your particular situation. It's like knowing how to cook with what you have in your kitchen instead of having to follow a recipe. I'll demonstrate how this might work for the upcoming 6101 abstract assignment by looking at the assignment in terms of self-knowledge, analog design discipline knowledge, and the community of analog designers. In Latin, abstract literally means drag away. Here I'm using it in the sense of a text that drags the conversation to a new topic, not in the sense of a report summary, the important bits that have been dragged from the body of the report. The basic premise of the abstract is that the author needs to start a conversation about something interesting. It represents the beginning of a design process and its communication elements. And it requires knowing what interesting is for the author and for the community of practice, which for the purposes of 6101 includes 6101 staff and students and future students. As an aside, developing an eye for noticing interesting things will serve you well. Now for an obligatory, gratuitous Calvin and Hobbes comic. I add it here to drive home some elements of the abstract. In this panel, Calvin casts down the gauntlet. After all, what could be more interesting than a flamethrower? And the means to the interesting end is also clear. Dad just needs to shell out some bucks on Amazon. A hidden element of Calvin's abstract is the relationship between form and function, which are conflated into the noun flamethrower. What the thing is and what it has to do are, at least to the 8-year-old mind, the same. You may be able to pull off a similarly simple text. Jim and Nagar, I'd like to build a tube-based USB power supply for my 6101 project. Finally, I'll observe here that Calvin is blissfully unaware of the worldview of his audience and the community of practice, a blind spot that presents a barrier to effecting the change he desires. At the risk of repetitiveness, I'd like to repeat the question I posed at the project kickoff: what makes circuits interesting? I ask this question persistently because clarity about the value to be added at the start of a project focuses the design work and makes the communication so much easier. Implicit to this understanding of interesting is your exigency as author and your understanding of the community of practice on which your text will act. Without clarity regarding interesting, it will be difficult to efficiently use knowledge from the domains of process, genre, rhetoric, and analog design to craft text. You might as well try to rearrange ASCII characters into a finished report. So do please add your thoughts about what makes circuits interesting to the Piazza discussion. I encourage you to include your 2 cents, even if someone else beats you to the characteristics of interesting that you've thought of also. If you have questions about the content of this video, add them to the Piazza discussion too. And spoiler alert, I envision 2 more videos of similar scope to this one. One that addresses the genres of the 6101 communication deliverables, and one addresses the rhetorical knowledge that might be applied to creating 6101 texts. See you on Tuesday. Content knowledge is the curriculum from the first half of 6101 and from 6002.